Content warning. The manga I will be talking about today deals with mature topics, such as gender and sexuality. One chapter also deals with a specific form of self harm, and in my reading of it and analysis, I feel it important to convey the plot of said chapter. My own words and my own takes deal with transmisogyny and use slurs I reclaim for either comedic effect or for emphasis. If you cannot deal with such topics, I get it, but I suggest you shield your heart and use this video as exposure therapy. There's these three kids starting middle school: Yohei, Kei, and Mitani. They've known each other a while. Yo and Kei are very close friends. Close enough that Kei mentors Yo on what to do when puberty hits, to keep Yo from hurting himself with his experiments. Yo has a crush on Mitani, but Mitani doesn't feel the same about him. She has a crush on Kei. One day, after gym class, Mitani asks Kei for a kiss. They do kiss, and unbeknownst to them, Yo witnesses that kiss. The following morning, Kei moves away, without a word to either of them. We skip forward to their first year of high school. Yo and Mitani are in the same class. There is a classmate who had moved away, moving back in. A gorgeous feminine individual with long blonde hair stands in front of the class to introduce themselves. Kei is back. They've given up on being a man, and they promise to teach Yo something better than masturbation. Thus starts the first chapter of Shuzo Oshimi's latest work, Okaeri Alice, or Welcome Home Alice. I made a promise to make this video when the manga finished, and it did so with chapter 40, which was released scanlated on Mangadex in August. And thus, here's the Transfem Metro Special intro. I am still glad that I made such an intro, but I don't really get many opportunities to use it, at least in the topics I cover. Well, let's get into the actual meat of the case, right? Shuzo Oshimi's an egg. I'll talk more about the manga soon, but I need to get this off of my chest. Shuzo Oshimi is a fucking egg. I am aware I said that calling a real human being an egg is not exactly kosher. That KT was weak, and I have replaced her. There is a lot of discourse around the term egg, and that you shouldn't force it on people, shouldn't push feminine men to transition, shouldn't pressure them. And honestly, seriously, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, fuck that take. If your reaction to a trans woman telling you the things you do, the things you say, they remind me of my younger self, is to angrily yell, "I'm not a fucking tranny," instead of finding it the honor that it is, that another human is trying to connect with you through shared traits, you need to grow out of your transmisogynistic shell and join us in the sun. I promise you, it's warm here. The idea that trans women hold any sort of social power and social capital that would let us pressure femboys to transition? It's ridiculous. It does not fucking happen. It has never happened, no matter what the people on Twitter say. But what does happen to a significant amount of trans women is that we are discouraged from transitioning by society, by our peers, by families, by the doctors we go to beg for help. And do you want to know one of the most insidious forms of said discouragement? Boys can be feminine. Boys can wear skirts and dresses. You don't have to be a girl to do these things. You can stay a boy. If you're not a trans woman or otherwise trans feminine yourself, you might not pick up on the insidiousness of those statements. To a certain extent, they're right. Gender is a fuck, presentation is what you make of it, boys can indeed be feminine and wear skirts and dresses while remaining boys. What makes it insidious is the context, because those words, those sentences, are not uttered in isolation. They are a desperate attempt of the person speaking them to prevent the person those sentences are being spoken to from transitioning. A trans woman hearing these does not hear, "Gender is what you make of it," an accurate statement. She hears, "You can perform these things. We will love you for doing these things. You'll be showered in praise and gifts if you look pretty to our standards doing these things. But the moment you genuinely, seriously consider being a woman instead of just performing femininity, we will tear it all away and leave you to die under a bridge." It's probably why the Twitch streamer Finster can never genuinely come out now if Finn is a trans girl. Their entire brand is built on being a pretty passable femboy. Now, I appreciate the support Finn is giving to trans people in the UK and the advocacy work they do in general, but the moment they go, "Fuck it, I am just a girl, you all were right," their empire crumbles. And that's why transmisogyny is an issue of systemic oppression and not interpersonal dynamics. Trans andro dorks. There's discourse on Tumblr from transmisogynistic trans boys that you should avoid like church. Transgenderphobia truthers. They're all like 15 and terminally online with maybe one 20-year-old using them. It's a whole thing. You're better off unaware of anything more. I played the Atlantis clip, but I'm sure it's more than 10 seconds.
Trust me on this one. You don't want to know. Audrey, don't tell him. You shouldn't have told me, but you did. And now I'm telling you, you don't want to know.
Correction, it's 9 seconds. So, to summarize, calling someone an egg is not a magic spell of force to transition. Trans women do not hold that power, and in fact, the reverse is true, as we are pressured to not transition and to remain as feminine men if we pass. Now, personally, I didn't and still honestly don't, so I was hit with the horrible, "You make a handsome guy, but you'll make an ugly girl" from my mom. I got 3 girlfriends and a server of dykes that want me carnally now, Mom. Back on topic. Shuzo Oshimi is an egg. And it's not just my words, it's their words from the endnote of Volume 5 of Okaeri Alice, along with endnotes and some of their earlier works. If you've been with me since the first episode of Transfem Metro, you'll recall I had Sammy of Transwitch Reviews voice said Volume 5 endnote for the finale, where I said I cannot make an episode on Okaeri Alice as it wasn't finished at the time. But because it is finished now, I am making this episode. So as a refresher, let me play the endnote here for you once more.
Girls. When I was in high school, I was obsessed with girls' bodies. I was on the boat of my own body, a boat that I could never get off, a boat of daily masturbation, sexual desire, and my bruised member. From there, in the distance, I saw another boat, that of a girl, and on it was my ideal body. I don't remember when that longing began. I found myself seeking it. At that time, magazines like that, with pictures and manga series, were usually lined up in bookstores. I'd buy them and stare at them behind my parents' backs. Also, I was utterly astonished by the girl dolls made by a man named Hans Belmer, and I was always looking at his photo books. But were the naked girls I saw there objects of my sexual desire? I think not. To me, they were the physical manifestation of my inner self, of who I really am. Somewhere along the way, I had misstepped my path and was trapped in a body that was getting dirtier and dirtier. In my fantasy, I was dissolving the boundary between myself and girlhood. Becoming a girl, becoming a doll, getting off the boat of being a man. I'd let myself forget the idea of the man that was masturbating while I masturbated, but the moment I ejaculated, I was brought back to reality, finding myself trapped in the boat of manhood from which I could not escape. But why girls? Was it because I wanted to be far away from men and violence? I always felt alienated and inferior in school and society. I developed a stutter when I was in junior high school, which instilled in me a definite sense of inferiority as a male specimen. As a man, I was pathetic and weak. I was always frightened, yet it seemed like I loved myself many times more than others. I didn't want to face it. I wanted to run. I wanted to go back to the way I was before I was forced to be a man. Were girls the intersection of those desires in reality? But among them, choosing girls who are also women, the object of my sexual desire, would perhaps have meant that I had not quit being a man, after all. So when the chance to have sex with a woman actually came, I forgot all about it, or pretended to forget it, and my mind was filled with the vanity of, as a man, as a male specimen, I must carry through sex impressively. My mind and body were in pieces. I didn't want to make the other person feel good, nor did I want to feel good myself. I only kept repeating the words, I have to do it right, in my frightened, blank mind. I could not do it properly, as I should have. Before the penetration happened, my body had become totally unexcited, and I could not get an erection. Strangely, I had forgotten about the birthmark that had worried me so much. No matter how many times I tried, it didn't work, but eventually, little by little, I started to get it right. The trick I found was to erase my girl self only while I was doing it, to be one machine in a boat of manhood. I am a machine, a sex machine. By telling myself this and pushing my body to the limit, I was finally able to have sex. But every time, the girl in me is wounded, bloodied, and torn to pieces. And then, before I know it, she becomes dim and begins to fade. It's as if she was never there, as if I was always the sex machine. Like, all men are nervous when they have their first time. Often, they can't get an erection. That's how we all grow up. You shouldn't have sex like in porn. But I couldn't forget the girl covered in blood inside me. How can I help her? I always feel some sort of tearing pain when feminism attacks men's unconscious misogyny, because I am exposed for the sin of trying to be a male specimen. I am forcibly confronted with the guilt of hurting the girl inside me. I cannot stop being a man, but I can't be a girl. I can't be a woman. How can I quit being a man? I dream of what sex would be like after I stop being a guy. Sex where no one spills blood. I want to get out of manhood, out of the boat, out of this reality. But if that's possible, or where it is, that I don't know.
It's obvious how much pain Shuzo Oshimi is in. But with Japan being how it is, their peers, their family, their obligations, and, well, their feelings, I genuinely think the only way to get it through their thick skull that they haven't completely torn apart the girl inside, that there is a way for them forward, that they can stop being a man and can be a woman that loves women, well, is for them to get doorlied. Doorlying. The act of kidnapping an egg into a forced feminization basement for their own good. Rude word Dorley from Dorley Hall, from the web novel series Sisters of Dorley, where there is a forced feminization basement in the UK that a trans woman gets herself kidnapped into for transitioning healthcare because it's in the UK. It's a good read, it's still ongoing, and the feelings and gender dynamics this expressed there are amazing. What having a 40-year-old trans woman for an author does to a web novel, eh? So, Shizuo Oshimi, the mangaka behind Okaeri Alice, the manga we're talking about today, needs to get door lead. Pronto. Until then, though, we can still talk about the manga, and I will go ahead and say this will be with full spoilers. So, Okaeri Alice is a coming-of-age story focused on Yo, whose life gets twisted when his best friend shows up back in his life, but now as non-binary and feminine presenting. As Kay puts it, they've given up manhood, but that doesn't mean they're a girl. So according to that endnote, Kay has done what Shuzo fears and feels they cannot do, given up manhood. It's the first step for Shuzo. With Kay back in Yo's life, things get weird. Kay loves Yo, has always loved Yo, genuinely, and they haven't transitioned to get with Yo as one might be led to believe once they learn that. Yo still has a crush on Mitani, however, so Kay decides to help Yo out, be his wing, get him and Mitani together, and also teach Yo what to do with Mitani. Surprisingly, Mitani agrees to dating Yo and goes along with it, largely as revenge towards Kay. If she can't have them, they can't have Yo. So we get a genuine love triangle, not a pressure corner like what heterosexual series with a quote-unquote love triangle portray, where the character has to pick between one of two options, but the two options hate each other, so making a corner and not, a proper triangle. Kay loves Yo, Yo loves Mitani, Mitani loved Kay and feels Kay transitioned to spite her. So they're both making it kind of about themselves when it's something Kay did of their own volition because it felt right. As the manga goes on, the feelings Yo has for Kay shift and change. Kay keeps flirting with Yo, keeps trying to get with him even when Yo is with Mitani, and when Mitani begins controlling Yo with sex that he dissociates from, that she has him swear not to spend time with Kay if they have, because she's jealous of Kay, even if she doesn't actually want to have sex with Yo. Odd. I could swear I remember one of my favorite movies having a plot point about a woman using sex to keep a character away from the rest of the family, and that movie had something important to say about values. Must have imagined it. It doesn't last long, however. Kay's just too good. Plus, Kay becomes friends with an artist girl that finds them beautiful and wants to paint them, and understands the idea of giving up the gender you were assigned and pressured into due to circumstances of birth. She becomes a nice change in dynamics by just being there as a friend. The big turn of the series is when Kay finally admits to Yo their truest desires. To return to the genderlessness of childhood where they could be one. There's a flashback scene of the two hiding under a table after Yo transferred school and closing their eyes to pretend that they're swapping bodies. It's really sweet and adorable, and it makes Yo feel guilty. Here's where the content warning kicks in proper. In the final 5 chapters of the manga, Yo feels guilty, feels tainted, dirtied, because of the sex he's had and craved. He blames his dick. Again, content warning at the start of the video. Boxcar partway rushed to the hospital where he recovers. After taking us psychologically as low as Yo can go and showing another thing Shizuo feels like doing but hasn't done, thank fuck, we get the highest of highs. Yo admits his feelings to Kei. They embrace and kiss. Kei asks Yo to cut their hair once Yo is out of the hospital as a form of intimacy. And once they do that, we get a really extremely artistic chapter. The way I joked about it to Sammy, it's little a ego death is okay to reform yourself. The two lay together, holding each other close, and let themselves mentally melt. They return to the primordial collective unconsciousness, where they don't exist as anything. They have no gender, no age, no sexuality, nothing earthly to worry about. And when they're anxious, when they think they're losing themselves, when they want to change, they're free to return there, rediscover and restructure themselves. These two 15-year-olds fucking reached nirvana. Well, 16-year-olds. The two return to Earth, mimicking that first play of body swapping, and Chapter 39 ends, with Chapter 40 being the finale. It's primarily just a walk following a time skip. Yo talks about all that happened off-page, how people moved away and around. Yo's on his way to Kei, who stands there, gorgeous, their hair grown out again, happy to see Yo, and it just ends on their smiling face. That's how you do an ending that's up to interpretation, Bandai! Yes, I'm still mad about them doing that to Witch from Mercury. Japan's like, it's up for interpretation. The West is like, no, they're fucking married. Yes, they're fucking married. They have wedding rings. And you know, I still want all the Gundam Gunpla from that line. The high grade ones at least. Give Caliban the short set sword maybe or something. Put them together and create a Stranger I Remain finally from Gunpla. Pension over. The story of Okaeri Alice is nowhere near as fantastical as the other Genderfucky series that Shuzo's written, which was Inside Mari. It's much more grounded, but contains some elements of corruption, like Flowers of Evil. But the corruption isn't out of malice or out of a twisted sense of love, but a genuine pure love between two non-binary teenagers. And as it's the latest of Shuzo's works, you can see them using their artistic chops to the fullest. The line work is gorgeous, realistic, you can feel it, and the watercolor covers are stunning. It's just so good. I wholeheartedly recommend you give this one a read, as all the other ones in the Transfem Metro series. Maybe you'll learn something. Most definitely, you will understand the plight of seeing an obvious egg and being unable to help them. Actually, yeah, if you take anything from this video, it's that being called an egg is a compliment, not a condemnation. That we cannot push anything onto you. And while I get the desire to retreat further into your shell when confronted with the idea you might be a trans girl, don't do that. Instead, experiment with people you trust. Give it some time and, you know, maybe you'll be a trans woman at the end. Maybe you'll be a cooler cis dude. That's the null hypothesis idea, that being cis and being trans are equally valid outcomes and conclusions of experimentation, in contrast to cis being the default and trans being what you have to end up after being cis. With that, I've been Katie, this has been the Okaeri Alice Transfem Metro special, and here's the Patreon thanks section. You know what's playing, I'm not risking a takedown by playing the song, so thank you for watching the Okaeri Alice special. I can't say that it's been a long time coming, but it kind of has been, as I promised it back in December of last year. So, updates. since the last video that I released not that long ago, I have lost my job. August 31st of 2023, I was fired from the receptionist position. They felt it was not the right fit for me, and as it was in the 3-month trial period, that's as much as they were in the right to tell me. So I'm on a job hunt right now, which is stressful because I have just about enough, or should have just about enough, to cover rent this month, and in October and starting November, I am shit out of luck. If I don't start working in soon, I just will not have the money to stay here, which is where you could come in. If I reach $500 a month on Patreon, closer to 600, I will cover my rent completely. So, if you want to join my patrons, links in the description below. If we reach the 600 goal, as I said, I will be able to completely cover rent and not have to worry about job hunts and about getting fired because I'm too autistic and too ADHD for work. What was it? Too ADHD for office work, too autistic for retail. I am built for gaming stores, but none of them are hiring, and the ones that are hiring never hire me. So that's the situation. However, let's not jinx it. I did send my CV, my resume into a gaming store, so hopefully they will accept me. They will take me on, and I will be able to work there enough and actually make myself useful for them to hire me as a full-time employee and to just stay there and maybe reach a managerial position. I don't know. If I can have a gaming store job, I don't think I would be able to actually keep a job elsewhere. And that's why Patreon is so important and why I believe that I can reach that goal. I haven't blown up yet, but you can help with that as well by sharing this video with other people, sharing my previous videos with other people, and through that I'll build an audience and get the patrons. I don't even need that much on Patreon. As I said, 600 a month, that's a reachable goal. If this video has 100 viewers and each of you donated the $5 tier, which would get your name in the credits of these videos, or $10 or $20 where you'll actually get a voice shout out and be able to, well, suggest new video topics and actually commission for stories. If you did all that, I would be able to reach that 600 goal really, really quickly and just not worry. You'd get an unstressed Katie, an unstressed Griffin to focus on video production, on writing these scripts, on getting all these videos out, on getting all these rambles out to you. Speaking of rambles, I have been rambling on long enough, begging you. I am asking for money. I am constantly asking for money. I will constantly keep asking for money. You can expect that, because unfortunately, the revolution is the rapture for leftists in the West, and shit's hard. So, with that ramble out of the way, as this is the patron thanks section, I need to thank my current patrons that are helping me a lot. Those being, on the $20 tier, Aurora, followed by the holy trinity of $10 tiers, Ginger, Kylie the Healer Witch, and Fossil Fox, followed up by everybody on the $5 tier, who I'm extremely grateful for being on the $5 tier. Remember, you can read all the stories I've ever written and posted, including the not safe for work ones, if you're on the $5 tier, so incentive to join, especially for those who are still on the $1 or $3 tier. Again, Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. The links are in the description below. Again, I've been Katie. This has been the Transfem Metro special on Okaeri Alice. I will see you next time. Bye bye.